Hello and welcome to the January 2015 edition of Missouri Legislative Update. This month we come to you from the new fourth floor viewing gallery of the upper chamber. I'm Dean Morgan reporting for the Missouri Senate.
And I'm Jonathan Lorenz reporting for the Missouri House of Representatives. Lawmakers from all across the state returned to Jefferson City for the start of the 98th General Assembly. In this month's top story, we bring you the sights and sounds of opening day in the Missouri House of Representatives. With the sound of the gavel, newly elected and returning lawmakers started the 98th General Assembly. After taking the oath of office, lawmakers unanimously elected Representative John Deal to serve as Speaker for the 98th General Assembly. They also re-elected Representative Denny Hoskins to serve as Speaker Pro Tem. Priority number one for the new Speaker is to protect the state's bottom line.
This session will continue our commitment to creating a fiscally responsible, balanced budget, which makes the best use of taxpayer dollars while cutting the size of government at every opportunity.
Republicans returned to the state capitol with a 117 to 45 majority over their Democrat colleagues.
We're happy to work with whatever group is going to help us move our legislation forward. And I will be the first one to say that we're very willing to work with Speaker Deal. I know that there's going to be economic development issues that we're going to all be able to work together. We all want to create jobs. We don't always have the same ideas on how to do it.
The issues and events surrounding the death of a black teenager in Ferguson, Missouri, grabbed headlines as leaders from both sides of the aisle made it a priority.
Sweeping changes need to be made to begin to right some of the institutionalized injustice that has led to a system that hurts those at the bottom of the economic spectrum. Each day it makes it harder and harder to dig yourself out of a hole.
We have to be very, very careful when we talk about these issues that we separate failed government policies from those men and women who serve the public by defending our lives and property.
Lawmakers ended the first day of the 2015 legislative session by dancing the night away during the annual legislative ball.
In the Senate, the opening day of session began with tradition, a call for bipartisanship, and an outline of priorities for Senate leaders. Senate Communications correspondent Brad Bayshore reports.
For the first time in 2015, the Missouri Senate was called to order as Lieutenant Governor Peter Kinder raised his gavel to begin the first regular session of the 98th General Assembly. After exchanging pleasantries and orders of business, the Senate officially welcomed its newest members during a short swearing-in ceremony. The 34 members of the Senate then listened to Senate President Pro Tem Tom Dempsey of St. Charles address the body, where he made a strong call for bipartisanship in the upper chamber.
New challenges await us this year, and I expect this chamber to continue to work together in order to make our great state the best that it can be. I'm confident we can do this because I've seen it happen before.
Before opening session began, majority and minority leaders held a short news conference together to discuss legislative priorities and other issues pertaining to this year's legislative session. Senate Minority Floor Leader Joseph Keaveny of St. Louis discussed economic development, health care, and education as top priorities for his caucus.
Good health care and good schools. Hopefully coming into this session, we'll have an environment where we fully fund the school foundation formula. We need to expand the preschool in the state, early childhood education. We need to have that for every child in the state.
Senate Majority Floor Leader Ron Richard of Joplin discussed creating jobs, tort reform, and ethics reform as top priorities for his caucus.
Job creation is at the top of my list and supporting those bills and legislation that will come forward. Also, there's going to be an ethics bill coming out of my committee. A number of them have been introduced, including myself. We'll see what happens on the floor. It will not include campaign limits.
This year's session started on Wednesday, January 7th, and will conclude on Friday, May 15th, 2015. Reporting for the Missouri Senate, I'm Brad Bayshore.
31st, Ed Emery.
Governor Jay Nixon delivered his legislative platform for the 2015 legislative session in front of a packed House chamber during his annual State of the State address. Following his speech, we met up with lawmakers from both sides of the aisle to get their thoughts on the governor's plans for 2015.
Ladies and gentlemen, Governor Jay Nixon.
Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle listened to Governor Jay Nixon's legislative priorities for 2015 during his annual State of the State address. Nixon's address covered a myriad of topics, but didn't contain the specifics lawmakers were hoping to hear.
It was statements of things like, we need to look at transportation funding. Well, we all know that. Or the only specific proposals that the governor made tonight going forward were more social spending, more government programs, and expanding the role of government. I think those things are all going to face a very difficult road here in the General Assembly. During his speech, Nixon also presented his proposed budget for 2016. His budget calls for an increase of more than $125 million for the state's education foundation formula. However, part of the increase requires the General Assembly to pass several pieces of new legislation, including expanding Medicaid. We have to go off the facts. We have to go off the actual numbers. And the actual numbers submitted tonight by the governor was about a $50 to $60 million increase in K through 12 for the foundation formula. And that's probably pretty consistent with the numbers that we had in mind for the budget tonight. The rest of it's purely rhetoric. On the other side of the aisle, the House's top Democrat likes the approach because it attaches consequences to not passing the legislation.
So if we don't get this done, we're looking at $150 million funding less for this. We're looking at $50 million less for that. I mean, I think it's important for people to realize the consequences of not passing the legislation.
The budget process now begins as lawmakers craft their version of the state's operating budget based off of the governor's recommendations.
Several Senate committees have met for the first time to hold public hearings on several pieces of legislation. This includes the Senate Appropriations Committee. Senate Communications correspondent Brad Bayshore has some of the highlights.
Many of the measures being considered in Senate committees were pegged as legislative priorities by Senate Leader Tom Dempsey during his opening day address. This includes bills aiming to bolster Missouri's agriculture industry and reforming Missouri's municipal court system. Senate Bill 5, sponsored by Senator Eric Schmidt of Glendale, would reform Missouri's municipal courts by reining in the practice of overly relying on traffic funds to generate local revenue. The bill was presented to the Senate Jobs, Economic Development, and Local Government Committee. The Senate Agriculture, Food Production, and Outdoor Resources Committee met to hear testimony on Senate Bill 12, sponsored by Senator Brian Munzlinger of Williamstown. The bill is aimed at supporting Missouri's farmers, especially those in the dairy industry. Senate Bill 24, sponsored by Senator David Sater of Cassville, would modify requirements to receive public assistance. The measure was presented to the Senate Seniors, Families, and Children Committee. Senator Sater's bill would require any savings as a result of changes to Missouri's TANF or SNAP programs to be used to provide child care assistance to single parents, educational assistance, and job training. The Senate Rules, Joint Rules, Resolutions, and Ethics Committee also received testimony on several measures, including Senate Bill 11, sponsored by Senate Majority Floor Leader Ron Richard of Joplin. His bill aims to modify the law relating to the ethical behavior of public officials and lobbyists. The measure would, among other provisions, add a 2-year cooling-off period for lawmakers before they may become lobbyists. The Senate Appropriations Committee met for the first time this session to work on the state's fiscal operating budget for 2016. The committee, chaired by Senator Kurt Schaefer of Columbia, heard preliminary testimony from various state departments and agencies regarding their fiscal needs. Members of the committee will use this testimony to craft the Senate's version of the budget as session continues. Reporting for the Missouri Senate, I'm Brad Bayshore.
Up next on Missouri Legislative Update, we sit down with Senate President Pro Tem Tom Dempsey to get an update on the current legislation and how the 2015 session is going so far. Stay tuned.
These teams took advantage of the natural strengths.
Can you consent with me? Imagine what you'd see if every child had a book to read. 'Cause every kid across the nation deserves a book to read, and we can make it happen right now. No, I don't know what you've been told, but kids with books learn so much more. So the mission is for us to get a book to each and every child. So let's join hands, book people unite, unearth hidden passion. Come on, we'll have a good time. Planting seeds of inspiration to motivate some magic. To change the writing on the wall, writing on the wall, and make a difference. One book can inspire a child. One book can be the first thing that helps to change a life. People unite.
Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
Welcome back to Missouri Legislative Update. We are in the Bingham Gallery in the Senate and talking with the Senate President Pro Tem, Tom Dempsey, who serves St. Charles as well. We are, as we tape this, concluding the third week of the legislative session. We've started committee hearings this week. Safe to say that most of the priority bills are those with the lower numbers, and those we're seeing right now in committee probably will another week, and then start seeing some floor debate on those.
I think for the most part, yes. I think we encourage members to get their bills filed early, at least on the Republican caucus side. We talk in November, and then we kind of follow up in December to make sure they're getting those bills pre-filed. And sent the first 50 committee. I'm going to send another 100 today, and so there'll be a few more priorities that'll be sent to committee. And then, yeah, I think we'll have work on the floor as early as next week.
You had talked earlier, especially the first day of session in a press conference, that the first bill you hope to see is Senate Bill 12, which is an omnibus agriculture bill. Looks like that might be the first one that's talked about on the floor.
Yeah, that's work that I guess is left over from last year. It was several parts of it are from an omnibus agricultural bill that was vetoed and then fell short on an override. So there was a very controversial provision related to deer breeding, and they're now, I guess, overseen by conservation, and there was an attempt to move that to agriculture. And that part has been stripped out of the bill, and so I think the other parts of which everybody's familiar with from debate last year will be able to come to the floor, and hopefully we'll be able to move it very quickly.
That's a bill, like you say, left over, and that tends to be the case sometimes from year to year. There's a lot of legislation that resembles that of a previous year. With, again, the passage that was given to this bill, it fell one vote short in the House on a veto. Do you anticipate this to be a relatively easy bill to get through?
I think so. I've encouraged the chairman of the committee to do the best he can to keep it to the issues from last year, and I'm hearing there are a couple of subtle changes, and and anytime you change the bill, then you've potentially added controversy. So I'm leaving it to the good work of the chairman of the committee to bring me a good bill, and so I hope we'll get it done quick.
Municipal court reform, another one that's probably, I don't want to say fast track, but is one of those bills that probably will see earlier debate than later.
Municipal court reform, there was, I think, a study came out in August from an organization, a not-for-profit in St. Louis. I worked on the Max Creek Law in 2013, the latest revision bringing down the percentage of court fines that a city could collect, and there's just still a lot of abuse, and so we're going to work to curb abuse and focus on the fact that the fines and that type of law enforcement is there for enforcement and curbing behavior, not to build your city budget on.
And that's the Max Creek Law, obviously named for the city of Max Creek, which was universally known for traffic tickets. Forestell was the same way. There's a city in Franklin County, Gerald, that used to do the same thing. Why the need for the change now? Is it just the percentage that's changed, needs to be changed in the law?
Well, one of the things that's become apparent is if you don't add any teeth to the law, then really what have you done to curb the behavior? Second, it's become evident after the experience in Ferguson that there are a number of North County communities that, as they've lost population, as they've lost some of their business sector and become more bedroom communities, they've turned to kind of this area of revenue collection to really support their city services.
The governor gave his annual budget address as we taped this last night. Anything from that speech that you take away and say, I'm for it?
Well, I think we've been talking, and the student transfer issue, which we were able to put a bill on his desk last year and he vetoed. We didn't have the support to override it. We've been talking about that issue, and I think we can come together on something there. He voiced his support for the municipal court reform efforts. That's an area where we're already working. I think he also talked about his support for repairs and maintenance and taking care of state facilities. We worked on a bonding plan last year, so he's kind of echoed his support for ideas that we've been pursuing or priorities that we have this year. And so I'm encouraged that that as we move these issues forward, if there's a sticky point in one or two of those bills, that we can come together in March and April instead of finding out what his problems are in June when the bill's sitting on his desk and we can do nothing about it.
The budget for the current fiscal year, right at, I believe, $26 billion, and that's the proposal from, again, the executive branch, right around the same amount with a fairly small increase. After a year where we saw, I believe, a $2 billion increase. Is this more in line with where we should be in terms of spending, in terms of not adding a lot of funding from one year to the next?
Well, it's a very conservative revenue estimate that we have. We were able, unlike last year, this year our budget folks, the House and the governor all agree on the revenue estimate. And we're very conservative here in the state of Missouri. We budget that way, and I think we'll be able to add funding to core services. And we're going to continue to look at reforms in social services. We've got a welfare reform bill we're working on, and in health care with Medicaid reform effort that we'll have this year.
Is Medicaid reform doable in terms of, can the system be reformed, whether there's an expansion effort made or not? Can the reform be made where it works?
Absolutely. In the same way that businesses use technology to create efficiencies, we have that same ability in state government. We're just organizational chart-wise not set up to operate like a business, so it's typically changes slower and harder. But there's some great concepts that other states are adopting, of which we can look to some of their experiences and also things that are happening in the state and do a better job providing access to care and quality of care and addressing affordability with existing resources.
I know you're the pro tem, and that means that you oversee everybody in the Senate, and every issue that comes to the floor is important. Is there one issue or one bill that you really hope comes to fruition by the time we get to May 15th?
Well, being from St. Charles County, I've got a couple of constituency groups. I've got the 185,000 people I represent, and then the 34 that I work with and work for in the Senate. And the student transfer issue is a very important issue for our region. Access to a quality education for every child in the state of Missouri is a priority of mine, and I think that we are making good progress on the bill this year, and it's Senate Bill 1, and offered by Senator David Pierce, and that's something I would like to get taken care of. But it's hard to just talk about one priority, because I think we as a state need to do more if we're to be, competitive nationally.
These are some of the issues that not only the 34 people in this body, but the 163 in the House deal with between now and May 15th. Seems like a long time from now, but legislatively speaking, it's really not. We'll come back. We'll be in the Senate chamber with the Senate Minority Floor Leader, Joseph Keaveny from St. Louis, coming up on Missouri Legislative Update.
I think we need to do our best to address that.
A boy born in Joplin, Missouri was fascinated by anything with wheels and a motor. The odds of him going on to fascinate millions with his talent? 1 in 260,000. The odds of this born racer having 157 career top 10 finishes in NASCAR? 1 in 125 billion. The odds of him winning both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400 in the same year? 1 in 195 million. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism? 1 in 88. I'm NASCAR driver Jamie McMurray, and my niece has autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs.
Welcome back to Missouri Legislative Update. We're in the Senate chamber, and we're talking with Senator Joseph Keaveny from St. Louis. He is now representing the 4th Senatorial District, as well as now the Senate Minority Floor Leader. We are, as we tape this, early on in the session, Senator, and as we tape, the committee assignment's not yet made. We've got a couple of days on the floor. Talk us through where you, not just as a senator, but as the leader of your caucus, where the Senate is right now in terms of where you want to be and where you need to be soon.
Well, we're putting together all the committee assignments now. We were sworn in last Wednesday, had a short day Thursday. Then the Democratic caucus went to Columbia for Thursday afternoon and Friday, and we caucused in Columbia. And I've got a feeling what committees my members want to be on, what committees they're trying to shy away from. I worked over the weekend. I have my committee assignments ready to turn in to the majority floor leader, or to the President Pro Tem. It's my understanding that he's going to announce the committees today, and that he is going to announce the chairman today. He'll get my committee assignments today. I don't know where the majority floor leader is with his assignments. I would imagine, well, I know we're having a gubernatorial appointments committee hearing on Wednesday, but by next week we should be in full swing.
That's a big part of the committees. We're again early in the process, and we're in the first session of a technically two-year session. So we're in the first year where those committee assignments and committee chairmanships are first decided, and it's from this point where the legislation that's been pre-filed and filed so far early in this session, that's where it starts.
That's correct. He spent the better part of the session on Thursday reading the pre-filed bills in. After he gets the committee set up, probably today or tomorrow, he'll start assigning the bills to those committees. Then those chairmen will start having hearings. So we're probably talking at hearings next week.
So another important aspect is that getting a feel for how a session goes sometimes is usually based on those bills that are pre-filed. Are you happy with the legislation that you're seeing, be it from your caucus or anybody in the Senate?
Well, there's a lot of bills been filed to try to address some of the issues that were, I won't say brought about by the events in Ferguson, but they sure brought them into everybody's awareness. These are issues that we should have addressed, sometime in the past. So I'm really happy that we're going to have this discussion. If you stop and think, the Ferguson issues, that could go from preschool, enhancing preschool, to job creation, to, consolidating municipalities. There's just a whole myriad of issues that could address. So I'm really happy that we have some sense of urgency to address some of these issues.
You talk about Ferguson, you talk about a lot of this is something obviously it's attracted worldwide attention. And there are going to be senators that obviously say, well, it's more of a local issue than a state issue. How much of what post-Ferguson, how much of this can be legislated through the state versus locally?
Well, and I think that's where we're going to spend some serious discussion time discussing exactly that. What do we want to do at the state level, and what do we want to leave at the local level? And I would imagine there's going to be some heated debate on both sides of that.
In addition, there's several other obvious items. We talk about funding, the foundation funding formula. I know that's something that's very important to you.
Yes, I think we're underfunded just over $500 million now. It used to be almost $650 million. So the situation is improving. But, again, we can bring this back to Ferguson. We got to give these young men and women an opportunity to have a gainful life, to have a job and make a living. And, it all starts there. Big major companies, the General Assembly, we could do all we want, to create jobs in some of the impoverished areas of the state, but it's not going to do any good if no one's qualified to take them. So, we need to get young residents at least a high school education, probably a college education now.
Along these lines, when you talk about local versus state, the most important, arguably, and the only constitutionally mandated portion of what you do here in the Senate is the budget, and that's something that will come up probably about, halfway through session?
I like to say the Senate gets the budget on St. Patrick's Day. So it'll be about the second week of, I think technically we're supposed to get it before spring break. But it's my understanding that they wanted to finish the budget 3 weeks early this year. So we'll get the budget, we could get the budget at the beginning of March. And then have it to the governor the end of April. So they can deal with any vetoes or withholds.
Several years ago, pushing 20 years ago now, more than 15, there was a move in the House to start on the budget, which is where the budget starts, earlier in the session. And we've seen that play out over the last few years. Is it a situation where the budget needs to be started earlier, or we need to have it done this much earlier, or is this based on some of the withholdings we've seen over the last few years?
I think it's more of the politics of the thing. They want to be able to, I should say the legislature wants to be able to address any vetoes and overrides while we're still in session, instead of having to come back at veto session or have the governor call a special session.
In the 4.5 months that we're here for this, we'll be out by the middle of May. What do you hope to see? If there's one thing that you hope that becomes reality between now and then, what would that be?
What particular bill would I like to see passed? Oh, we're going to have a look. I'm not sure I can answer that right now. I'd like to see us make some serious progress on some of the issues that are highlighted with the crisis in Ferguson. People feel like they haven't been heard, like they've been ignored, or that they've been taken advantage of. I think we need to do our best to address that. Everybody is entitled to their fair hearing, and I think that should be the emphasis of this session.
Senator Joseph Keaveny from St. Louis, representing the 4th District, also the Senate Minority Floor Leader. These are some of the issues they'll be discussing between now and May 15th. Thank you for watching. And if you have any questions about the legislation that appeared in this program, please visit our website at senate.mo.gov. I'm Dean Morgan reporting for the Missouri Senate.
And I'm Jonathan Lorenz reporting for the Missouri House of Representatives. If you have any questions regarding anything going on in the Missouri House, you can visit our website at house.mo.gov. For all of us with Missouri Legislative Update, thanks for watching, and we hope to see you again next time as we continue to bring you the sights and sounds of the Missouri General Assembly. Thanks for watching.